I hope I don't sound arrogant by saying that, but I realized that I was pretty smart and I had a pretty good head for business, and that, driving a truck, while it's a noble profession, is just not what I was supposed to be doing, right? It was supposed to be doing something completely different, and helping people grow businesses. And I did that as an employee, and I did that as a business owner, and then I've done that as a consultant now for several years. So
the only podcast that it will help you grow personally, professionally, and financially. Let's go. Welcome to the Growth Talk with Glenn, where we dive deep into the art of business growth, one conversation at a time. Today, I am thrilled to host a true titan in the world of sales, a good friend of mine, Scott Miller, also known as the Master of Sales. Scott's journey is nothing short of inspirational, having transformed from a Teamster truck driver to the top-ranked sales leader in a Fortune 100 company. Scott, welcome to the podcast. How we doing, brother?
I'm doing great. And thanks for having me on, Glenn. I really appreciate it. And I always enjoy our conversation. So I'm looking forward to our time together today.
Let's go, man. Thank you for the opportunity. It's an honor to have you here. So listen, everybody, buckle up as we explore the high-speed world of sales mastery with Scott. Scott, if you don't mind introducing yourself, who you are as a person, as a professional, what is that you do, and who do you help?
So, my name is Scott Miller. That's a fairly innocuous name, right? In the old days when there was a phone book, if you opened up the phone book, there was like 12 pages of Millers, and probably half the page was Scott Miller's, right? So from that standpoint, I'm a fairly ordinary person, right? Matter of fact, when I ascended to the top rank of a Fortune 100 company, that company had 13 Scott Millers that worked for the company. So it was it's interesting. But look, I started out as a truck driver, and I was driving along one day, and I'm like, you know what? This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And nothing wrong with driving a truck. I made a good living doing that, and it taught me about hard work, and there's certain jobs out there in the world that people don't realize how hard people are working at those jobs, right? And what they have to deal with every day. That's one of those jobs in my mind, right? But yeah, so I look, I was actually terrible at sales when I first got into it, because I was told you have the gift of gab, so you're going to be great at sales. The reality is you're not that good at sales when you're doing all the talking, right? If you're listening more than you're talking, then you have an opportunity to solve people's problems. And really, that's what sales is two things in my mind. The first is it's transfer of enthusiasm, right? To the degree that I'm enthusiastic about my product and service, and to the degree that I can transfer that to other people, is to the degree that I can begin to have success. Enthusiasm, the root to enthusiasm is the word entheos, which means with God, right? Or with source. So if I'm ordained by the source of the universe to transfer my excitement for something, in my mind, then people can't help but get excited about it. You know what I mean? If they get excited about it, then you make a sale. So look, I came up through the ranks. I started to study sales. I started to study. It's like anything, right? You want to get good at something, you have to study. You have to understand what you're doing. And then I got better and better and better at it. And really, I took a posture of serving other people. And I think that's without counting the money, so to speak. One of the pitfalls to sales is people get into sales and they start counting their commissions, you know, before they've made the sale. And that's problematic for two reasons. The first reason is people can sense that, right? So if you're sitting in front of a prospect and you're looking at them like the cat looks at the canary, you know, and they and they feel like they're about to get devoured, then they put up their defenses, right? So that's the first problem, you know. And the second problem is that then you're not serving. Then you're, in my opinion, of course, then you're trading whatever it is that you're doing for a financial gain, and that may serve you from time to time. It may serve you a few transactions at a time, but in my opinion, over time, that's not going to serve you well. So, and so, you know, I worked for companies. I've worked for large companies, and today I'm an entrepreneur. I'm president of two companies. I have a business partner in both of those businesses, and we do quite well. You know, we have fun, we help people, and we make a lot of money. And that's really what that's kind of our mantra. That's what we're going after. So
I love that. And having fun is a big part of it because, like you said, it becomes personal. It's nothing like transactional. You build relationships, right? Build quality contacts, and eventually those contacts will turn into contracts. Scott, if you don't mind me asking, could you take us back to your days as a truck driver and share what pivotal moments led you to pursue the career in sales within the transportation industry?
Yeah, so, you know, I'll take you back a little bit further than that. A story that, you know, when I was in the corporate world, I couldn't share too much because I felt like it would, you know, compromise me. Maybe it will anyway, but and it's something that I'm not proud of, but I'm not ashamed of either. Is, you know, I got involved in things with as a young person where the result of that was I ended up living on the streets.
Wow.
And you know, and I was hustling people and doing things that were just, you know, not in alignment with who I was as a person, even back then, certainly not today. But you know, I could drive a truck. That was kind of what I started doing that during the summer when I was still in school. And you know, back when I started, I got a job as a Teamster driver. Minimum wage was $2.75 an hour, and I was making $14.93 an hour. So I was like, I thought, you know, I'm the richest guy on the block. You know, the sad part of that story is that truck drivers don't make that much more than that today, right? And relative to dollars back then to dollars today, it's probably less. They actually make less money, right? But you know, and it's a good profession, right? We need truck drivers, and I was pretty good at it. I you know, I took a entrepreneurial mindset toward driving a truck, the same way as I do toward any other business. Like, how can I get the most freight delivered in the shortest amount of time? Back then, my goal was so that I could go home early, right? You know, so I could have more hours to myself. Or I could work some overtime and make more money. So those were the two driving factors, pun intended, I suppose, right? Driving factors. But you know, but I was driving along one day, and so here's the thing. Uh, that job in the morning, you'd go into the break room where they dispatch everybody.
Yeah.
And all the guys, it was like a little old ladies knitting club. Like they would just sit there and gossip and complain and talk about the news and all these negative things. And I had no interest in that. You know what I mean? Like I didn't, you know, I didn't have any interest in that then. I don't have any interest in that now. You know, it's people are like, oh, did you hear about this or that in the news? I'm like, no, I didn't hear about that. They're like, why not? And I'm like, because I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want any negative stuff coming into my life, you know? So, but, and I just realized, Glenn, that that's not my life. Like I'm not part of that, you know? And so I got in the truck. By the way, I started, listening to tapes and back then cassette tapes of motivational, inspirational, educational type programs. And I started listening to the old time sales trainers, Tom Hopkins and Tony Alessandra and Brian Tracy, and these guys, some of them are dead, and the other ones that are still alive are probably in their 80s or their 90s, Zig Ziglar, all these guys. And I would listen to them. I had a board, the piece of board that I had one of those portable cassette players and a extra supply of batteries, and I would play these cassette tapes. I was buying them from this company called Nightingale Conant. They're still around. They sell digital products today, but I was buying these cassette tapes, and I think they were like $39 for a tape set, $29 or $39,
Back then.
which back then was a fortune for me. Like I was like, man, I don't know, and they would give you credit, you know what I mean? And I would buy these things on credit, and then I'd make payments over time, $5 at a time or whatever it was they were charging me.
Wow.
Excuse me. And yeah, so that's really where I started to get my education. But then I realized one day that I was a pretty smart guy. And I don't say that, I hope I don't sound arrogant by saying that, but I realized that I was pretty smart and I had a pretty good head for business. And that, driving a truck, while it's a noble profession, is just not what I was supposed to be doing, right? It was supposed to be doing something completely different and, helping people grow businesses. And I did that as an employee, and I did that as a business owner. And then I've done that as a consultant now for several years. So
I love that. So
that's how I came up.
I love that. Reflecting on that one company that it was near bankruptcy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What specific strategies you were able to implement now that you have all this knowledge and you are in this position? What was the strategies that you implement to achieve almost a 6,000% increase in sales?
Yeah, so that was actually the core of that company was good. The owner of the business sold it to some employees, and those guys, they were probably great employees of the company, but they weren't very good at running a business. One of the guys, to my understanding, and I probably shouldn't say this because it's not good to talk about other people if you don't know the exact facts, but my understanding is that he was spending more time at the bar in the afternoon than he was, at the office working on the business, right? And and these guys they were actually doing the work. This is a great lesson in don't work in your business, work on your business, right? If you're own a trucking company, never drive the truck. If you are run a secretarial service, a virtual assistant service, you should not be one of the virtual assistants. You should be running the virtual assistants, right? But anyway, this business went from a pretty healthy business down with 80 employees down to, when I came in there, they had 8 employees left, right? The owner of the business basically repossessed it from the guys he sold it to, right? And then his son was a mergers and acquisitions guy from Arthur Anderson. And this was a little company. I mean, it was just a small business. And he understood the value of bringing in top players. Like, he understood the value of investing big money into something to get the result that he desired, right? And, and I know there's a lot of people out there that look for the best bargain, and, they go to Walmart on certain days of the week so they can get coffee for $5 instead of $5.20 or whatever. And I'm not knocking that if that's what people want to do, but for me, that's a complete waste of time. Like that, it cost me more than the 20 cents I save on the can of coffee. It cost me more that money in gas to drive back and forth 3 times, Yeah, so this guy understood that, and he brought in myself. He brought in another guy, a VP level guy from I think it was Chessie Railroad, one of the big railroads. Guy had a big ops background, and this company did. They were a warehouse distributor and a rebuilder of diesel fuel pumps and diesel injectors and alternators, all components that go on large diesel engines. And then they had this truck division, and that was my expertise, was trucks. So they brought us all together and they said, guys, let's look at this business. Can we salvage this thing? And the good thing was we had these truck assets, which was really the kind of the, again, pun intended, the driver to bringing this breathing life back into this business. And because we were getting high margins on that part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just really ramped that up. And, we were getting, I don't know, 42, 44% margins, net margins. So net after taxes, money to the bottom line. And so that helped us, put us back into a position, gave us cash flow to build other parts of the business. The business had a solid customer base that people had just fallen off because the guys that were running it just didn't have that much interest in their customers. So, it's a lesson in, you take care of your customer and your business will flourish, and we were able to take that business from it was around a $10 million business to start with. It had dropped down to about $2 million. We got that thing up north of $30 million, and then we sold it to an investment group, right? So, and so it wasn't a huge business, but it was and it was a group effort. Yeah, I led the sales piece of it, but there was other people in there that were important to it, and that's the thing I would like to say about sales is a team sport. The salespeople usually are the ones that get the accolades, right? When a company has a big win, oh, Joey brought in, Amazon, or Mary brought in FedEx, and we're doing millions of dollars of business with these people. But there's a lot of other people behind the scenes that make that happen, right? And so that never got lost on me as a salesperson, even when I was with the Fortune 100 company. I excelled the second year with the company is when I ascended into the number one spot in the business. But I understood that there was other people that were responsible for my success. So, out of my own pocket at the holiday, the end of the year, I put on a big luncheon for everybody at the facility that I worked at, and bought little gifts, nothing extravagant, but just little gifts for everybody. And because I wanted them to know that my success was their success, and while I was the one who got to get up there and get recognized, it was really their efforts that put me there. So
Wow.
And that was the secret behind, the renaissance of that business, that extreme growth. There was a great customer base to start with, but we just went back to basics, which was serve the customer. You know what I mean? And it took hard work, but it was, serve the customer. And by the way, when a business is in that position, there's more to overcome, right? Because now you've got customers that you've had for a long time that many of them have a sour taste in their mouth, right? Many of them are, upset with what happened or whatever, or how they were treated. And it's tough to get them back. It's much easier to keep an existing customer by, making concessions or helping solve a problem than it is to go out and get new customers all the time, right? It's getting new customers is a part of a business for growth, but I would submit that there's a lot more growth opportunity in your existing customer base than there is in new customer base. So, but that's how, we were fortunate. We built that business up, sold it, and that was it.
That's amazing. Service. A lot of times people forget and companies forget about service, which is superior to the sale, right? And it goes back to what you were saying earlier. It cannot just be a transaction. It has to be like a long-term relationship, and also, like you say, serve your customer.
Yeah.
I love that. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
I was going to say, in that regard, I just recently bought a new laptop. I won't say the brand that I bought because I don't want to embarrass them, but and I bought this brand for many years, but this last transaction was a very difficult to do business with them. And I told them that, I was overseas when I was trying to purchase
Uh-huh.
this laptop. And so I guess that triggered some red flags or whatever. But, you know, I got on the phone with these people and it was just first of all, it was hard to get them on the phone. Second of all, it was hard to get the problem solved. Finally, I was like, do you guys want to do business with me or not? Like, I have the money. It's not a lot of money. It's whatever it is, $1,100 or whatever for the laptop. But I want it. You keep sending me emails saying, oh, you left your shopping cart behind. I want to buy it. But, so to your point, service is absolutely critical. It's key.
I love that. Scott, with your experience, what is the most common mistakes that you see companies facing when it comes to the sales process? And also, how can they avoid those mistakes?
So that's a great question. And I would submit that when you're building out a sales process, your company protocol, your sales process, and your presentations and so forth, you should start with problems. Like, go and find out what is the worst thing that ever happened to your company. What was the worst customer experience that ever happened? And work from that end. If you can understand what is the worst thing, not the worst problem the customer has, the worst problem you've had of running your business, and then how to solve that problem with the customer in mind, right? You can't do that in a selfish way. So because what ends up happening, and then people start counting money instead of service and things like that. So start with the problems and then understand how you solve those problems, and and then build your entire process around fixing that or answering that. Maybe not fixing it isn't the right way to describe it, but how to address that within your organization. And then the way to avoid those problems is to talk to people up front. When you're in the process of talking to new prospective clients, they're great sources of information before you're even doing business with them. What do you like about your current supplier? What would you change? You don't want to get them to talk badly about the competition. That's not the point. The point is, what do they like about what XYZ company is doing today? And then acknowledge that, hey, they're a great company. I compete against them on a regular basis. I have a lot of admiration for them. But what I know about myself is that, and my company, is that there's always ways to improve. So if there was one thing that you'd like to change about your current relationship with XYZ, what would that be? People will tell you, well, you know what, they make deliveries on Friday afternoon. We don't like that because we like to send everybody home at 3:00 or whatever it is, making something up. And then address that. Okay, how about if we deliver stuff on Monday morning when everybody's fresh? Oh, that would be much better. Boom. Now you've just solved the problem, right? And they'll give you a lot of information. You just have to ask. Now, if you're asking that information, again, like the cat looking at the canary with a big silly grin on your face about how you're going to whack them with a clothes, some kind of clothes that you heard about, the porcupine clothes, they're going to send me some, I'm going to throw it back at them. If you're doing that, people can smell that from a mile away today, right? So, some of those things are still good from a strategy standpoint, but doing canned things like that is not good. So, but anyway, so understand what is the protocol, right? How do you solve people's problems? And then find out from your existing customers, go to your existing customers. Why do you do business with us? Well, it's really easy to do business with you guys. I got a problem. I call Mary. She's my sales rep I've had for the last 8 years. I can call Mary on the weekends. I can call her at night. She answers the phone. She solves my problems.
Wow.
You guys are the highest priced people in the market, and I'm not even sure your product is the best. But as long as you got Mary, I'm going to buy stuff from you. You hear things like that all the time in business. All the time, right? So Yeah, understand the process, understand what is your protocol, what is your process, how do you put that into presentation form? And the good thing about that is if you really truly understand that, Glenn, then when you make a presentation to a company, you can answer all the objections that you hear. You can answer it right in that presentation. At the end, they should be, when you ask a closing question, they should just say yes.
We're
And then
ready.
the ideal presentation should go, they said yes. And then after a slight pause, they go, whoa, wait a minute. How much does this cost?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like they don't even know the price, you know? So that would be the ideal sales presentation, right? That would be the ideal sales interaction. So
I love that. I love that. And multiple times during this conversation that we're having, it's always going back to the service. Like,
service.
and also you mentioned something, identify what is your competition is not doing, identify whatever problems your customers are having with their competition, and then solve those problems within your sales process. Wow. Scott, this is a good one. Check this out. If you were going to write a book about your journey in sales, what would be the title and why?
Wow, that's a good question as well. So, I would probably title it "How to Dominate Your Market
Mm.
Through Superior Service in the Sales Process," right? And again, it goes back to serving people, serving companies. Is I've had a lot of companies that do business with me, and then when I've gone to a different company, they continue to do business with me. That's a testimony to the service that I provide, right? Because products are, look, the competitive landscape um, is vast, right? You look at cars. Cars are a great example. You can buy a Hyundai for whatever 15 or 20 grand for the cheapest one,
Yep.
and you can buy a Bugatti for $5.5 million.
Yep.
They do the exact same thing in with respect to they go from point A to point B. I would argue the Hyundai is actually a better car because it's got a trunk and four doors, so you can fit four people in it, and you can put stuff in the trunk, right? The Bugatti has two seats and no trunk. You can bring your briefcase with you, and that's it. So that's a completely different function. But guess what? They sell those Bugattis every day of the week. There's actually a waiting list to get those cars,
Yep.
and while you'll see advertisements for Hyundais every day of the week, you
Mm.
never see an advertisement for a Bugatti,
Nope.
right? So the reality is, there's a couple different factors, but the way to dominate sales is to serve your customer, serve them with a good product at a fair price, with exceptional follow-up and customer service, and then you, as the sales professional, um, need to be available you're a problem solver. That's what salespeople are. They're
Mm.
not a money collector. They're not a commission counter. They're a problem solver. You have a problem. I'm going to find out what it is, and then I'm going to solve that problem for you. And after I do those things, then I'm going to get rewarded for that. That's how it should go.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Scott, before we get wrapped up, what would be, I don't want to say advice because we're not lawyers. Let me see, how can I put this? Okay, here we go. What would be the recommendation that you will give either a startup or a setup business or even a seasoned business in order for them to keep scaling and growing massively? What would be a good recommendation that you can give them?
So those are kind of different. You gave a couple of different levels. Those are different things that you need to solve. But for the startup or the person that has an idea, I owned a trucking company once upon a time. I bought a small company and I did all my math and I got my accountant involved, and I way underestimated how much it was going to cost me to run that thing. Way underestimated. Like I had no idea. So, the for the startup guy or a startup gal, or the solopreneur or the entrepreneur, um, be honest with yourself about what it's going to take financially and time wise to get to scale that business. 0 to $1 million is a hard road. It's hard. Not because it's hard to make $1 million. I would submit that making $1 million is easier than making $100. That's just my opinion. But the reason that it's hard is because, first of all, most people have never done it before. But the other thing is that you're going to meet a lot of obstacles along the way. And when you do, when you have no skin in the game, which means you only had an idea, at that point you haven't lost time or financial resources, it's easy to quit. Like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm going to go back to my job, or I'm going to go back to doing whatever it was I was doing. And so that's, be honest with yourself. That from 0 to $1 million, be honest with yourself of what it's going to take, and then never give up. Never give up, right? And the other thing too is, once you set a target, a target or a goal, never go off of that target. So if your goal is to make $1 million this year and it's August and you've only got $200,000 in revenue, do not change your target to, okay, 3/4 of the year has gone by. I've only done 300 or 200,000 instead of $1 million. Let me lower my revenue projection for the year. Do not do that.
Wow.
Sit down and talk to yourself and say, self, what do I need to do to make up that $800,000 shortfall? And then go to work and do that, right? And it may be that you don't get to see your wife or your husband or your kids for the next 4 months, but come heck or high water, you're going to make that goal, and that's it. Above $1 million is, there's different points along the way where you need different skill sets. One of the things that, when you get above $1 million, the first thing that I would say for people is, there's very little competition at the top of the heap. That's what people don't understand. There's a lot of people. Most of the competition is at the bottom, scrapping for and this is true in any arena, right? They're scrapping for they're fighting for scraps rather than dealing with bigger opportunities. And this is true individually, and it's true in companies. People think that money is the answer, and it is not. The answer is inside of you. You're the answer. Your team is the answer. It's not the money. You hear people say, oh, if I could just generate, this money, or we could just get our revenues to that, then we can do this and that. No, that's wrong. It's you got to make an adjustment inside, right? And one of the challenges with that is that we resist the right answers because where we got the wrong answers from, like where we got the answers that we have in our life, where we got those from, we resist the right answer. Somebody could tell us something and we've been, conditioned to believe something, and we're like, oh, no, that couldn't be like, that can't be it. So that would be the other thing. And then as a business starts to grow, and the last company I worked with, we went from a startup. That company was an existing company, a very well established brand, but they launched a brand new product. It was cost them about $12 million, between 12 and $15 million to launch that product. And, we got that thing up to doing in excess of $400 million a year in revenue. So, but the thing about, in that business, as that got to be a very large business, what I realized is that I don't emphasize the way to grow. I realize, and this is true for every level now. I learned this at the top, but now I realize this is a truth for the startup, the medium, the small business, the medium, and then the large business, is that I don't emphasize how much it costs if they say yes, right? That becomes a price thing,
Mm.
right? What I do is I emphasize how much it costs them if they say no,
Ooh.
right? So when somebody understands how much it costs to say no,
Mm.
then it's easy to grow a business. It's easy to make sales, right? If I'm trying to sell you a pen and that pen can get, and you need a pen right now, you're sitting at a table in front of a customer that's about to sign a $3 million deal and you don't have a pen. How much is that pen worth?
More than $3 million.
More than $3 million. I could sell you that pen for, we've all heard that silly thing, right? Sell me this pen, right?
A quick 20% commission, like a split.
I'm telling you, like that pen is, you'd go and sell that pen in reality in bulk for probably 3 cents.
Yeah.
But at that moment, what does it cost you if you say no to that?
Mm.
It costs you $3 million. No, I'm not going to buy this pen. Well, how are you going to sign the contract? You know what I mean? So, yeah, so that's what I learned. And this is true at any level. When you start up, small, medium, large business, it's not how much it costs if they say yes, it's how much they cost if they say no. And you need to portray that. You need to transfer that thought, that knowledge to the prospective, either your existing client or your prospective client. Once they understand that value, then it's easy it's easy.
Mm. Well, Scott, I gotta say thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity, your knowledge, your expertise. It's been a pleasure spending this time with you. We're about to wrap it up, but I want to say thank you again. And for the people that are listening, I really we hope that you also got inspired and equipped of knowledge that you can just take from here and go apply it into the marketplace, into your life, and see the benefits of becoming a master in sales like Scott it is. Scott, again, thank you for the opportunity. Always wishing you the best of success, health, and wealth. And before we go, let's give our audience a quick quote. From page 9 to 85, you pick a number.
Let's go with 13, my lucky number.
This is a good one. Here we go. This is great for what we were talking about. The right level of action is massive action. Let's
Boom.
go. Scott, thank you for the opportunity. I had a blast. Hopefully we can do this another 20 more times. Wishing you the best. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Let's go.
My absolute pleasure. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.